For a while now, I've wanted to do a new game series where I explain why it's important and I detail and discuss important events that happen to the gaming industry. Not just what you miss news, but things that have happened in the past that stick out more than just the standard news. So today's episode is a little bit of a pilot, and this might be a little bit of standard news, but I want to talk about why it's important, game design, and how you're designing your sprites and the individuals who are going to be in your game that are important to the game and the core mechanics, and basically the backbone of the game. So what we're going to be talking about is the design itself of one Pokemon that recently was released, and that would be Lycanroc's Dusk form, I believe. Maybe I'm missing something here. I've just looked at the picture and I've just seen the reveal, and that's pretty much all you need to do when you look up this Pokemon to know that this is somehow a new form, but it is a Dusk form and it's colored orange, and that's cool, right? Perfectly fine. A new form of a Pokemon that you can catch, and the new Pokemon Sun and Moon, right? What's there to complain about? Except that upon further inspection, you might have seen it instantly, but if you're not a really engrossed Pokemon player, Pokemon Sun and Moon, you might have missed it. Well, hey man, this is just Lycanroc's midday form colored orange. Yeah, it really is. This leads a lot of people to start up the debate once again about bad Pokemon design. So, as I said, this is the pilot episode. We'll gauge and see how well it goes, and whether or not I want to do more of these. But basically, this is Lycanroc's Dusk form. Now, the reason that it's colored orange is very obvious. It's very apparent. A lot of people might not have picked up on it. They might have instantly said, well, it's just laziness. That's the Pokemon Company. Look at how lazy they are. Well, maybe that is true to a point, but check it out. Check out the background with this image. The sky is orange, and that happens when it's dusk time. So the sun goes down, and it makes the sky orange. And so it's very apparent and obvious why this Pokemon was colored orange. Of all the colors they could have chose. See, the midnight form of Lycanroc is red and white, which I'm not really entirely sure about that. It would have made more sense for it to be black, but I guess it corresponds with it being more like a werewolf. And the midday form is just gray, and it's the same color as Rockruff before it evolved. So there you go. Now, I play Sun and Moon every now and again. I'm not that deep into it anymore, but I'll tell you right now, I think a lot of the designs are 10 times better than what this is. Immediately when I saw this design, I instantly thought to myself, wow, man, did this Pokemon eat too many carrots and turn orange? I mean, really, is that what we're doing now? And a lot of people would defend it instantly, like, oh, you're just a Gen 1er. No, man. Look, I love Pokemon a lot. I enjoy the game a lot. I think my least favorite generation would be Generation 5, so I really enjoyed Gen 1 through 4, and I'm not saying Gen 5 is bad, I just didn't like it as much as the rest of them, and I really enjoyed X and Y as well. But in each generation, there are Pokemon that are poorly designed. That's right, just not that well designed, in my eyes at the very least. There are uninspired Pokemon. Pokemon used to be inspired by monsters that would be basically corresponding to the animals of the world, insects, things like that. Sometimes they were inspired by legends like Gyarados, Charizard being a fire dragon flying in the sky. You know, same with Dragonite. Legends, right? That makes sense. Really cool stuff, man. So you're taking animals, insects, and legends and turning them into monsters that you can capture. Makes a lot of sense to me. It's really cool. But then they started adding in inanimate objects and things that just didn't make sense. Like, at what point in time are we going to have the garage door opener Pokemon? You know what I mean? Like, I joke, but take a look at Generation 1's Voltorb. Now, you might not know this, but Voltorb and Electrode are actual real things in real life that correspond to what's known as an electrode. And depending on your area, it might be like you might be in the scientific community where an electrode is used for something else. But if you go to a steel mill, they have giant electrodes that they use against the steel for a processing technique to create steel. So this is a real thing. And the same with Vanillux. This is an ice cream sundae. Okay. Really uninspired creation, and unfortunately this is a very uninspired Pokemon that happened to occur. People can like it, they can enjoy this type of Pokemon, it could be viable in competitive battle. Cool, right, it's an ice type, it's ice cream, right, but uninspired nonetheless. And then you have Klefki, a literal set of keys. Now again, it doesn't matter what type it is. It doesn't matter if it's viable and competitive. We're speaking about design. So this is just a set of keys. Keys. That's it. Literal keys. Like, what happened, man? Did you literally just have keys on your desk and said, you know what, we're just gonna make a fairy possess them? If anything, if I had to go out on a limb and try and make a theory here, I would suppose that a lot of people feel when their things go missing and it's hard for them to find, that there are fairies and imps and things hiding their stuff to play pranks and jokes on them. So if a fairy possessed your keys and it came to life and it went and hid and you couldn't find your keys, that's why it would be a steel fairy type in Pokemon. That would be an extensive theory that I could look into and speculate on. But at the end of the day, it's still a set of keys in Pokemon. Now, there are really terrible Pokemon designs out there, subjectively speaking, in people's eyes, especially in the Gen 4's evolutions for Gen 1 Pokemon that never evolved and things like that. Like, you have Tangrowth. Tangrowth, it's a cool Pokemon, but at the end of the day, there's nothing different about it from Tangela other than it being a little bit bigger. And then you have Nosepass, and the same exact thing. Well, Nosepass is designed a little bit more extensively than Tangrowth was. It's still very similar to its previous evolution. Then there's people who sit there and say Garbodor and Trubbish are terrible Pokemon design, but I think that just matches up with Coughing and Wheezing and then Grimer and Muck, and you get the whole trash family right there. Trash! The Trash Man. If you know that reference, go ahead and leave me a like. There's very basic Pokemon design, and then there's very poor Pokemon design. Like, for example, Voltorb evolving into Electrode, all it does is evolve into a bigger ball. Now, why was Voltorb made to begin with? Let's think about this for a minute. Well, in Pokemon Generation 1, items on the ground looked exactly like a Voltorb. So I'm quite sure later on in the game development, they decided that, hey, man, look at this. Voltorb, he could impersonate one of these Pokeballs. And that's why they stuck him the way he did in the power plant in Generation 1, where if you hit the wrong item, you know, you thought you was getting an item, well, surprise, you're getting attacked by a Voltorb. And that's a cool little game mechanic and a cool little surprise. So it makes sense why Voltorb was created. It was a kind of throwaway Pokemon, and I'm sure they didn't intend Pokemon to go past Generation 2, as they've stated before in the past. So it makes sense that it was created for the time period, and that was it. But there are other Pokemon that continuously get created, and they seem extremely uninspired to me. As I said before, some of these Pokemon that are uninspired and uncreative and not really fun to use, in my opinion, they're there for a reason. Whatever. You can like them, you can hate them, you don't have to enjoy them. But I don't think crapping on these Pokemon designs is the right thing to do. So does Lycanroc's Dusk form look like he had a little bit too much orange juice, just a little bit too much of that carrot in his diet? Yeah, that's absolutely true. And the sprite swap, or it's not considered a sprite anymore, but basically the 3D rendering image of the Lycanroc right there is the same thing as the midday forms. I mean, it just is. It doesn't look anything special. And even in its variants for Sun and Moon, you can see the differences in its design, but it's the same exact design as the midday form. It's just a carbon copy and paste. And I'm quite sure there's minuscule and minute differences, but it's not different enough like the midnight form to stop people from clowning on it. I love me, the Pokemon Company. I'm never going to stop loving Pokemon either, because thanks to Pokemon, I don't have to be up in a factory slaving away, breaking my back and my body down just to make $1. I can sit here and make videos speculating and talking about Pokemon for you, ladies and gentlemen. So if you enjoyed this video, please make sure to leave me a like, and please make sure to share this with other people. I would love to get the opinions of a lot of other people in on this. But as a final statement, just as a few more examples, just because a Pokemon's uninspired doesn't mean it's bad. Pineco. Pineco is based off of a pine cone. It's not a terrible Pokemon. Not a lot of people sit there and say, this is the worst design I've ever seen. It's just a pine cone. So Fortress is a usable Pokemon that it evolves into, but the design was uninspired at first. That's all it is. Depending on whether or not you can use these Pokemon in battles or want to use them later on, depends on if they're really uninspired to you or not. It's all subjective. It's all based on your personal taste. But there are a few Pokemon that a lot of people do come together on and say, hey man, this just wasn't the best Pokemon design. I don't think so. So there you go. While we're getting a new, different form of Lycanroc, that's sweet. I think that's cool. I really appreciate the support and the updates they are given to Pokemon Sun and Moon. They're not dropping that support. I think that there could be better Pokemon to be released, and they don't have to be some OP legendary that basically breaks the in-game campaign rather than being competitive only and things like that. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have to say on that subject matter. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, as I said before, and you guys have yourselves a great day. I've been your host, Protomario, and I'm signing out. Good gaming, God bless, and thank you for watching.